Hello Internet, my name is Peter Licari, and today we are going to answer one of the most pressing questions on the minds of American adolescents. Why is the drinking age 21?
To alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
Now in order to answer this question, it's necessary that we go on a little
road trip! Woo! I feel that was necessary.
I was hitting the road to celebrate my 21st birthday, and this trip would take me from my house near Orlando to my alma mater, the University of North Florida, to celebrate with some of my friends back in Jacksonville. In order to get there sometime within the next century, I was going to need to hop onto two federally maintained highways, I-4 and I-95. That's all well and good, but you may be wondering what highways have to do with the federal drinking age. As it turns out, just about everything. I guess the Constitution kind of plays a part in all this too, but you know what? No, it's mostly highways. Before the 18th Amendment came and tried to improve upon the moral failing that was alcoholism by inadvertently replacing it with increased gang activity and drug smuggling, #slowclap, the issue of when and where it was okay to drink wasn't necessarily a federal one. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution enabled states to consider and decide upon a whole boatload of issues that weren't otherwise explicitly mentioned in the document, and this included the drinking age. After the ratification of the 21st Amendment repealed prohibition, the issue was then foisted back upon the states, which they happily dealt with, presumably after they let their celebratory hangovers blow over. This led to a lot of inconsistencies, with some states saying that it was okay for you to drink at 18, others at 19, others still at 20 and 21. Inadvertently proving that there really is nothing special about one's 17th birthday here in America.
Happy birthday to the ground! I threw the rest of the cake too!
Then came another really important constitutional amendment, the 26th, which mandated that 18-year-olds be given the right to vote. And since these same 18-year-olds could die for their country whether or not they volunteered or were conscripted, they figured that it was probably for the best that they were allowed to vote for individuals who would ultimately be sending them to war, just to kind of make sure that their lives wouldn't just be thoughtlessly thrown away.
At the wave of my own minute.
Now that 18-year-olds could vote, states were under a whole bunch of pressure to let them drink as well. Which, makes sense. If you had to vote for one of these two paragons of honorable governance, wouldn't you want something strong to drink too? Presumably before you even leave your house to go to the voting booth? Which, incidentally, brings us back to our little field trip.
While it was ideologically consistent to let younger people drink, it did pose some practical problems, namely drunk driving. See, studies at the time linked an decrease with the voting age with an increase in motor vehicle fatalities. The more people that were allowed to get drunk, the more people died from drunk driving.
The group MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, lobbied the federal government to try to raise the drinking age up to 21, but there was a slight problem. With the ratification of the 21st Amendment, the power had been given back to the states. The federal government no longer had the ability to directly dictate the drinking age anymore.
But they can do so indirectly, which brings us back to highways.
You see, the federal government disperses money to the states for a whole host of projects, and one of these projects is the maintenance of the state and federal highway system. And this is a pretty big carrot, and states are desperate to get a chunk of it. Knowing this, the federal government decided to make 10% of its total disbursement conditional. And the condition was pretty straightforward. Make the legal minimum drinking age 21 or don't receive the funding. And since we're literally talking about millions and millions of dollars here, the states didn't want to give up that revenue stream. So it's no surprise that every state in the union eventually fell in line. And even though the Supreme Court ruled that this was a constitutional action, the controversy has never really been quelled.
Although to their credit, it may have actually worked. A study released in 2014 reviewed all of the literature published on this topic, and they found that it did indeed lower the amount of fatalities on the road due to alcohol and due to drunk driving. Although, to be fair, there were some issues with the study that could call these results into question, or the degree of the results into question. However, at the end of the day, the current standing is it did do its job.
But since we're talking science here, why 21? The argument that MAD levies on their website is that we're waiting for the brain to reach a certain point in its development that it can better process risk. But if we're really waiting for that, then 21 isn't that great of an age either. Studies have shown that the areas of the brain responsible for processing risk don't fully develop until your mid-20s. Although I do promise you that as soon as you start advocating for a drinking age around 25, 26, you're gonna have an angry mom on your hands. As it turns out, it's actually the convention of English common law. The logic of the Middle Ages had it so that our lives had 3 different points of demarcation. At age 7, you transition into youth. At age 14, you transition into adolescence. And at age 21, you transition into adulthood. Now, why are we doing this based off of a base 7 system when everything else is either base 6 or base 10? Dude, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine on this one. varies? If it isn't based off of science and is instead based upon tradition, then doesn't it seem to be a bit, arbitrary? Oh, yes, it is. But let's be completely honest here, so is any age-related barrier to entry. There's no time-delayed switch in your brain that makes you more mature at 18 than you were at 17 years and 364 days. Nor is there some dark magical curse placed on your liver from the federal government saying that you can't metabolize alcohol until the clock strikes midnight, which would probably be like the most perverse Cinderella story I've ever heard. But these arbitrary limits have a definite impact on our culture, our laws, and our lives. Some are going to take the fact that we're not much different at age 20 as we are at 21 to advocate lowering the drinking age. And while I personally may sympathize with that, what I feel it really signifies is that whether you're 18, 21, or 35, you were never too young or too old to be responsible.
Whatever you decide to do is on you. That is your prerogative. But whatever you do, please just be safe in doing it.
That's all the time we have for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them down below. Links and sources are going to be in the doobly-doo. This is Professor Politics signing off. I'll see you next time.